So in this one, I'm going to be looking through gameplay in 5 different matches and basically reviewing the mistakes I think I made in them. Go ahead and comment below if you think that there's any alternate lines I'm missing, any sort of factors I'm missing, anything like that, any sort of advice, basically anything, I guess. I'll try to respond when I can, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy my suffering. I've played about 8 leagues in the past week or so, and with a win rate of basically 50%. I think almost exactly 50% now that I think about it. It's just a series of 2-3 and 3-2 results. One change I've made to the list, maybe about in the last, I would say 2 or 3 leagues, is I switched out a third copy of Snare Master Sprite for a Cogwork Wrestler instead. I think this works better against Mono Red, which is a lot more of what you tend to focus, or face in leagues. That's pretty much it. Alright, let's turn to a match against Mono Red. This is game 2. I'm on the draw. And here, the question comes down to, what is the correct thing to do? I end up playing Fairy Seer here because my thinking is that I can set up my spell stutter up a little bit better. But realistically here, I could have just held up Blue Blast instead. The problem is that this is actually kind of a difficult question. The opponent could just as easily play something like Voldaren Epicure on turn 2 and then just do nothing else, keeping up 1 mana open for like a Bolt or something like that on any sort of 1-drop. Then what you end up doing is that here, let's just kind of go through it here. I play out the Fairy Seer. Seer's for something inconsequential, doesn't really matter. But the reason why this ends up being pretty bad is that the opponent can just cold Dotha here, right? And that's what they end up doing. They end up cold Dothing the Clockwork Percussionist away, and yeah. Realistically, if I had held up Blue Blast for that instead, none of that would have been possible. This is kind of a hard decision to make. The opponent could just have easily played some sort of like inconsequential 1-drop, something like another 1-mana Gobbo, something like a Voldaren Epicure. I wouldn't Blue Blast that, that's for sure. And then they have a clock of 2, and that's not a super great spot for me to be in instead. If I had just simply played like simply not done anything with my Blue Blast there, on this turn I could play an island, I can play a Seer, and then just let the Seer get bolted? Would I do that? Would I protect my Seer with Blue Blast? Probably not, honestly. Probably not. There's a couple of other things here that I could have done. I could just play another island and not do anything. Is that good? Probably not. If the opponent goes on and plays on turn 3 land, and then they go Bushwhacker, I go Blue Blast, or I go Spell Stutter Sprite. They go kill the Spell Stutter Sprite with a Bolt, or they Pyroblast my Blue Blast. That's not. Those are all ways of getting blown out. I guess kind of in some ways you have to kind of try not to worry about all the possibilities that the opponent has. I guess this is just one of the ones where it does end up biting me in the end. Okay, in this game, it's game 1. I'm on the play. I don't know what the opponent's going to be doing here just yet because they just played an island and passed turn 1. What I end up doing is I just end up flashing a Spell Stutter with the intention of Moon Circuit hackering it back to start building up some sort of advantage, some sort of board presence. And then if you see what the opponent ends up doing is that they also answer my Spell Stutter with their own Spell Stutter. Neither of our Spell Stutters do anything. The question then comes down to, well, should I swing with my Spell Stutter? The opponent has a couple of different answers. They could either block and trade. They could do nothing, let it go through, and then I can Moon Circuit hacker it in. Or as you see here, what they do is that they end up playing Mutagenic Growth. So I do this, play the island, obviously. I swing in. They block here. They play mutagenic growth, and I do have the dispel here, right? So seemingly on the face of it, this could end up being okay. The problem is that I have mulled to 6 here, and the opponent did not mulligan at all. Let's see here. Yeah. I mulled a 6 here. Opponent starts with 7 cards in hand. Trading 1 for 1 like this isn't super great. You in the mirror match, typically the player who wins is the one assuming both players don't fall behind on lands. The player who wins is the player with more cards in their hand over the course of the game here. So if you're just doing 1-for-1 trades like this, you see I'm 1-for-1ing the mutagenic growth with a dispel and stuff like that, and I'm 1-for-1ing a spell stutter for this like this. This isn't the best way to win. Because if the opponent can parry your moves, then eventually the fact that they draw a card, that can end up mattering. Now, if I had started off with like a turn one fairy instead, then arguably I'd be ahead. But the case here is that I'm spell stuttering instead. Realistically, in these sorts of cases, what you kind of need to do is that you kind of need to be able to respond to the opponent's moves while still keeping some of your board presence. If you're going to be playing the mirror match, don't just trade 1 card for 1 card. Really try to look for places where you can 2-for-1 them or be the last one with your counterspell on the stack. Let's skip ahead a little bit here. The opponent's turn 3, they were able to back up their Brine Barrow Intruder spell with by counterspelling my spell stutter. And here what you see is that I get the island, I could play the Moon-Circuit Hacker, and I could respond to a counterspell. The problem is that no matter what I do here, it's not going to be great. The Moon-Circuit Hacker doesn't replace itself anymore. If I play the island, play the Moon-Circuit Hacker, I'm down to 1 card in hand, the opponent draws. Even if they end up also dropping a land, they're at 3 cards to my 1 counterspell. And that's just not a happy place to be. Alright, this is another game 2 against a different mono-red player here. Here I'm on the play, and I go for a super aggressive line where I play out Miscreant followed by another Miscreant here. Don't do this. You just end up opening yourself up to terrible End the Festivities play. That's what ends up happening here. I do draw another card, but realistically, I have no reason to draw another card. I already have 2 islands. I have a spell starter to back it up later. I could have just as easily played out a Miscreant, left open 1 mana for a Spell Pierce in case they play something like a Ren's Resolve or something like that. That's realistically the more correct thing to have done here. They could also have, for example, I would also have wanted to keep up Spell Pierce for if they get a little greedy and they want to Kuldotha away their Great Furnace. Another play that would have been pretty good would have been to like Spell Pierce what do you call it? Synthesizer. That would be another good place to hold up Spell Pierce. Let's say, for example, the opponent plays a second land and does like literally nothing, then I could hold Spell Pierce for their Bolt when I play my second Miscreant here. But really, there's no reason to have played both Miscreants here and just have no mana, no way to protect them or anything like that. Yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. So let's just see how this plays out here. Poorly, obviously. So as you can see, I played out both Miscreants. The opponent plays a land. They play End the Festivities and they play Epicure, and yeah, they do end up playing out the Synthesizer here. I try going Spell Stutter on the Synth. They go Bolt here. I play Pierce, and if they had another Bolt, a Pyro, or anything like that, that would have been pretty terrible here. The long and short of it is, don't get super greedy against these very proactive decks. You remember, you are the one who wants to control their early plays. You're the one who wants to make their some of their cards useless by countering them. If you if you allow the mono red player to 2-for-1 you with the end of festivities, that's not good. So in this first example, we're dealing with the mirror match. This is game two. I'm on the play here. This is turn two, my turn. The opponent left to open an island here. This first decision, I mean, obviously just drop the island here, right? Now, the question then comes down to, do you Moon Circuit Hacker here, or do you play Fairy Miscreant, or do you play Counterspell? Or do you just hold up mana for Counterspell? My sort of thinking here is that I'm on the play, so I want to be a little bit aggressive, right? I just swing in and play Moon Circuit Hacker. But this is probably not the correct way to do it, and I'll sort of go why. You probably are better off just playing a 1-mana fairy. For one thing, if the opponent leaves up mana, they're not going to be able to most lists aren't playing Force Spike anymore. Even if they are playing Force Spike, you still have the other mana, right? That's the idea. Now, the other reason for this is that if I play the Miscreant like this, right? Opponent plays Brine Barrow Familiar on their turn. I could bind the ninja that they get in there with, and with Bind the Monster, it's not super great because they could always snap it back, but then they're basically kind of forced to snap it back, honestly. And then with with Spell Pierce and stuff like that, you can probably get them into a stage where they waste a snap. And that's always pretty good. The mirror match is always kind of like a series of knife fights. I would probably say that the only time where this would maybe make sense would be if you have two Moon Circuit Hacker effects. You could swing in Moon Circuit Hacker, let them Brian Barrow the first one, and then you flash in, and then you ninjutsu it in for a second Moon Circuit Hacker. Okay, so after having explained all that, let's just look at the play-by-play. Swing with the Fairy Seer here. We attempt to Moon Circuit here. Opponent responds with a Brine Barrow. And then I go ahead and bind the monster on the Brine Barrow. My thinking here is that the bind on the Brine Barrow Intruder, that lets me swing with the Moon Circuit Hacker next turn, hopefully if they don't have another 1-drop. In this case, they do have another 1-drop, and I make another mistake here in just trading. I realistically didn't have to do this. If the opponent had wanted to swing in with their Fairy Seer, then and then play like a mutagenic growth or something on top of it. I mean, I do have counterspell to back it up with, and that's pretty fine. Okay, this is later in that same game here. This is turn 13. For the last, what does it look like, 6 turns or so, we've mostly just been at most playing lands and passing. Most of it's just draw and pass. I make the decision here to swing because I have a Moon Circuit Hacker, and I basically just want to start advancing the game state. My thinking is that if I swing out with everything, a Moon Circuit Hacker back one of my Fairy series, I can then try playing it again and hope to get ahead on board. The problem is that this actually isn't the greatest time to do this, and this is my reasoning why. The opponent has played no counterspell effects, and they've played no spell stutter effects. I've played one counterspell, and they can see that I have one spell stutter effect on board. I think realistically, the better thing to have done here would be to actually just continue passing. The opponent has 6 cards in hands. I have 5. I know one of mine is land, and it is totally possible for the opponent to have also basically just like bluffing 1 or 2 lands in hand. That's actually probably my guess. My thinking here is that each time the opponent plays a land, I play an additional land. That way I can stay up on mana by a little bit. And I could have continued doing this for at least like maybe 2 or 3 more turns. I can still continue to represent like I have something. In these sorts of situations, I think the person who blinks first tends to lose. It's not 100%, but that's usually what happens. I could just wait 2 more turns. The opponent draws cards up until they have a max 7 in hand, and then I just continue drawing until I also have a max 7 in hand. Eventually, at some point, If I absolutely need to, I can deploy the Brine Barrow Intruder, but realistically, these are probably the cards I'm waiting to see. A second Ninja, some sort of draw effect, some sort of counterspell effects. Those are really the things I'm trying to look for here. The it's pretty safe here to probably just continue drawing and go. These are basically the things that can blow you out here. If the opponent has spell stutters, and then they can return them. If the opponent has spell stutters and ninjas, that's pretty bad because now they can start drawing more cards than you. Also, here in this case, if the opponent had any sort of Brine Barrow or another Cogwork Wrestler effect, to blow out this interaction here, so that they actually do end up with flyers that they can ninjutsu back. So ultimately, here is not the right time to swing. You're better off just waiting until you can get 4 more good cards. You play a land at some point here. You play the Brine Barrow Intruder if you need to. Like, for example, if the opponent swings in. Those are all sort of reasons to do it. Here, actually, this is another good point here. Let's say for the opponent decides to hero swing in one of these things with the expectation I'm going to single block here. Just don't. Triple block. Triple block the miscreen if you absolutely need to. This is sort of the reason why here. If the opponent plays Brine Barrow or a Cogwork Wrestler effect, then it's not. You can still kill the miscreant. It's going to. You also have one of your own Brine Barrow Intruder effects here. If, for example, the opponent goes what's the word for it? Mutagenic Growth. Those are all, and plus there's also Dispel here. So there's lots of ways to blow the opponent out if you absolutely want to. So yeah, this attack is premature. That's the ultimate point, is that this is a premature attack. Just keep drawing cards until you get better cards. Okay, let's go into this one here. This is game 3 versus Cycle Storm. I got a pretty great start here by getting a turn 1 relic, and here I basically just get too aggressive. The opponent is going to end up cycling a couple cards here. I get rid of one of them, and here I flash in the stutter. Basically, I just get too greedy here. That's really what it boils down to, is that I just get a little bit way too greedy here. Playing the stutter here on flashing it in with no effect, that's actually not the worst thing to do, because you do want to start applying some level of a clock to them. With the island in hand, counterspell Ninja the Deep Hours here, what I do here is that I play, here, we'll just see here. I play the island, swing, ninja, play the miscreant here, right? Leaving up 0 mana, because my expectation is that, well, what's the opponent really going to do on turn 3? Never underestimate what the opponent can do here, because what they end up doing is pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. And all of this could have been done better if I just decided not to ninja here. They play Dark Ritual. They play 2 Dark Rituals, play a Lotus Petal, and then they play out Horror of the Broken Lands and a Drannith Stinger. Just pretty crazy. Granted, they would have had to have needed a lot of stuff, but there was no real reason for me to have ninja'd here quite so early. I could have just as simply played out a Fairy Miscreant and then passed. I would still have a relatively decent clock with 2 flyers in the air, and here I had the counterspell backup to counter the horror if I needed to. I probably would have let these like the rituals and lotus petals go through. They probably wouldn't even have done anything with them. They probably would have just cycled maybe to look for more cards. But yeah, this is another case where you just get too greedy. There's no super great reason for doing this. In the end, in this match, I have no answer for the horror. I never draw into any sort of snaps or anything like that. And yeah, it's just an example where there's no need to get quite so greedy here. Anyways, that was basically it. I hope you enjoyed reviewing these moments in games with me. Uh, if you have any inputs, any comments, again, feel free to comment if you have comments. Yeah, I think the next video I kind of want to do is maybe like a sideboard guide for this deck, along with some cards that I used to see play in Mono Blue Fairies, and either why they're not being played anymore, or what cases they might actually be good in. Stuff like Spire Golem and damn, I can't remember. There's some like 3 mana like flyer, like 3 mana 2/2 flyer with Undying. I forgot the name of it, but stuff like that. The roles of mutagenic growth and why I don't play them anymore, and just stuff like that. That's probably what I kind of want to cover next video. So yeah, and then after that, I might just think about playing some different decks. Maybe Grixis Affinity or Is It Fairies, which I think is probably kind of okay right now. Yeah, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it.